We're back again. It is the Painfully Honest Tech Podcast. The podcast so honest it hurts. This is where your tech goes to die a slow and painful death through honesty. And today we're going to keep on with the honesty train as it pertains to things like the Vision Pro and maybe why people are not keeping them. But some people are buying them too. But, we've got other things that we'll talk about. But, yeah, here once again, as always, with my co-host, Adam. Say hello.
Howdy.
And, he's from the YouTube channel, The Tech Odyssey. Tech Odyssey. And you should go check that out as well. If you're here watching me, you would definitely enjoy watching him. Go sub to his channel. Links and everything in the end card and in the description down below. We are here doing this podcast. And, sometimes we do it out of the goodness of our hearts. That's what we do. That's why we podcast. So anyway, oh, my camera is shaking. Damn it. Yeah, I've got it on this like stand. And yeah.
So it'd be a little wobbly today.
Yeah. I just set up this like little filming station, and I was worried about the shaking because it's on this like arm thing that has multiple arms.
As long as you're not like touching the desk, I think it's fine. I don't know if you had your hands on it or something, but it was jostling around.
I always lean in when I've got something important to say. Anyway.
So the whole video, because we always have important things to say.
Yeah.
I'm bad about it. I'll be here for 1 minute and then I'll be back here, but I have to be careful because I'm one of those people that doesn't have an inside voice. So especially when I get into talking about things, my volume will go up.
Yeah, I kind of have the same thing going on where I'm looking at my compressor here, and we were just talking for like the last half an hour, 45 minutes or whatever. And my compressor has been just doing, all the things that you want your compressor to do. It's right where it's supposed to be. And then I was doing the intro and it's like, it's compressing a lot more. So anyway, I will do my best to figure out a way to stabilize the camera at some other point. But until then, I will try and like gesticulate without touching the desk.
You're like Ricky Bobby, like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
I don't know what to do with my hands. Yes. So anyway, this is so the Vision Pro last Friday was officially 2 weeks, and that is the time that Apple gives you to decide whether or not you want to make the commitment to pay the money and keep it. And the discussion around the watering holes of YouTube has been how people are taking it back and how people feel about that. So I don't know. I certainly am in that position. I got mine a little bit later, so I had a few more extra days to make my decision. But Adam, you went out and got one just the other day.
I did, yep.
Against the grain of everything.
I have it right here.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm in a little bit different position than some folks, because a lot of people bought it like just to make content. Like some people buy things just so they can make videos about it, so they can get views and clicks and all that stuff, and then they're like, all right, I'm returning this. I bought it just because I was genuinely curious about it. Like I maybe I'll make a video about it. Like, I don't really intend on making a bunch of videos about it. Like I know some people like have made it like a cornerstone for their channel and all those sorts of things, but I didn't really care that I didn't have it day one because I wasn't planning on making day one content. Like, so I put out a community post on my channel, be like, hey, finally got one. Does anybody want to see any content on it? If everybody said no, like I wouldn't even make a video. I just got it because I wanted to try it out. And I've actually got a pain point with it, which is kind of pissing me off. So half of the reason that I wanted to get this headset was so that I could use it while I was laying in bed at night. So I'm not sitting there holding my phone, which puts out quite a bit of light, and it kind of keeps my wife awake sometimes. So I'm like
holding your iPad above your face and then dropping
it. All that stuff. It avoids all those injuries to my face.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, this will be cool. I can just lay in bed and I can watch videos on a 200-inch screen or whatever and enjoy it. So I tried to turn on a movie, And then I put the Vision Pro on, and it's like, you don't have enough light to use this.
Yeah, so I've gotten that warning, and I think what it wants to begin with is enough light to do like the eye scan and sort of do all of its calibration stuff when you put it on.
Hmm.
But I have watched it in a relatively, like, I've put it on in bed in a room that's like, maybe I've got like one table lamp on that's not very bright. So I've definitely watched content with it on, but it does say things like, "Hey, you're in low light, your hands might not show up."
Yeah, so
Or
there is that warning. So if you have it requires some ambient light. So if I have a little bit of light on, it will work. But
right,
if I turn the lights completely out and it's black, it just comes up and it says there's not enough light, and it won't let me do anything.
right,
And
right.
that's the problem. So my cure for that has been to turn on the flashlight on my phone and have it pointing up at the ceiling, and then it works. But if
Okay.
I turn the light off, it shuts off my movie and it stops working and tells me that I need light. So yeah,
Yeah,
if you have a little bit of light, it'll work. But if I have no light, like, I can't use it at all. And that's defeating half of the reason why I wanted to buy this. Because now, instead of me looking at my phone and that light that it emits, I have to turn a, a flashlight on and point
yeah,
towards the ceiling. So I have, so yeah, it'll tell you that there's not enough light. It may not be able to see your hands if it's low light, but it'll still work.
right. Yeah,
But then with no light, it's like, no, no,
yeah.
not, you cannot do this.
And I guess that's a pain point that wouldn't exist on a typical like VR headset, because most
Mhm.
VR headsets,
Have
they might
controllers.
have some tracking like lenses and stuff, but for the most part, like if you've got on a VR headset, especially one like the Oculus Rift S or something like that, or one of the Valve Indexes or one of those things are just basically like extensions of your video output from
Right.
your PC.
Or if
And
you use
so,
XR glasses, it's just a display. Like,
yeah,
it's not really anything. So the problem with this one is basically it needs your hands to do certain things.
yeah,
I mean, mostly it uses your eyes and your eye tracking and then little tapping thing. And even if it can't see your hands, it'll still detect the tapping,
right,
so you can select things. But yeah, I mean, in a pitch black room, and someone was like, "Oh, well, why would you want to do that?" I'm like, "Because this is why I want to do that."
right,
And also, as I mentioned before, like, I have a lot of head and neck issues. I can't sit up with this thing on for hours on and keep it on my face because it causes me issues. So and I sleep mostly during the day and I'm up at night. So
right,
a lot of times that I'm using this is in a less than ideal lighting scenario.
right.
So it's not something that I think is going to affect a lot of people, but it is something that directly affects the way that I wanted to use it. And it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to be like, I think that'll be a more prevalent issue for some people than you might initially think. Because yeah, I mean, one of the attractive things about the Vision Pro is that you can put it on your face and you can watch a movie on a big giant screen in 3D with whatever. And I can see why people might want to do that instead of have a TV on in their bedroom,
Yeah.
right? So that is a blind spot. Maybe they'll come up with a solution to fix that. I don't know. But for me, like, yeah, it has worked in that way, and I've watched some stuff. Um, but I haven't watched as many movies. Like, I found myself using Safari a lot more than I thought I would.
I have been using Navview Safari because there's no YouTube app, there's no Netflix app, there's no Reddit app, and like a lot of what I do. So I'm usually recording my videos around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 2 or 3. Like, I don't normally go to bed until 6 or 7 in the morning. Like, I stay up all night, and then I'll get breakfast or cook breakfast for my wife and kids before they get ready to go up to school, and then I'll go to bed and I sleep till lunchtime.
Right,
And so my hours, like between the hours of 2 and 5, I'm usually laying in bed. I'm watching a movie. Watching a couple episodes of a TV show while simultaneously, like, one phone I'm looking at Reddit or I'm looking at Twitter, and the other phone I'm like watching a video on.
Right.
So I thought this would be a great way to alleviate having to basically use two phones, and two, I could just comfortably lay there and use this and have the big screen.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
not really working out that way for me, that the way that I
You,
would like to.
it's funny though, if you used something like the Rokid glasses,
Hmm.
um, I think that using the Rokid glasses dark in a dark room would actually benefit those glasses because there wouldn't be as much light bleed and everything else. And I would think that that would help those glasses, you know, just be a little bit more sharp. But
It does, yeah. So that's what I was previously using. So I have the Rokid Air, I have the Rokid Air Max, I have the Lenovo Legion glasses, and previously that's what I would use that for. But the problem with those is that I could just kind of watch a movie, and whenever you have those glasses on, you can only see what you're looking at. Like I can't be watching a movie and then simultaneously using my phone,
right,
but I
yeah,
can't watch a movie and also have something else open. And then the beauty of the Vision Pro is you can use your eyes to interact with all of it.
yeah,
It's not like, all right, let me watch this video. Oh, let me lift the glasses up so I can look at my phone. Like you can't really do two
yeah,
things. You can just watch a movie, and they're great for just entertainment purposes. Like
yeah,
it's great for that, but for multitasking, not so great.
yeah. Yeah, I mean the thing about the Vision Pro is that you really do have like a three-dimensional space
Hmm.
around you. Like you could resize windows and put like all different kinds of things like above your head and all this other stuff.
One
So
would
it is.
even call that spatial computing.
Oh my goodness!
If only Apple decided
If
to.
only they had come up with that before they put. Oh wait, yeah, um, yeah. It is pretty cool. Like so. I know you've got your physical limitations, but wearing it, do you find it heavy? Because that was like the biggest thing that everybody was talking about. And when I got mine and put mine on, it's not light. And if you don't have it
I
like on your face right, it can like make your cheeks go to sleep.
I
But
don't find it too heavy. Like you notice it's there. Like definitely like there's enough weight that you're like, all right, this has some heft to it. But I don't think that it's unreasonably heavy, I think would be a good way to put it.
right, right,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that it does feel a little front heavy. Now, I need to get that top strap. I think that would help out some.
it's
Uh,
in the box. It's in the box.
it must be in
So
that little one that all the papers shoved into. Because the guy, when he sold it to me, he's like, "Yeah, there's a cross strap that goes across the top." And when I opened it up, like I didn't see it. It must be hidden somewhere.
if I remember correctly, it's at the very last thing in the box, and it's just kind of like folded up, and it's like a little pamphlet, and you open it
Mhm.
up and it's in there like folded up on itself, but
Okay.
you
Yeah,
could
yeah. The
take
guy
it. Yeah,
told me it was in there. So I had so much stuff going on that day. So when I was texting you the other day while I was at the Dune movie,
yeah,
the original 1984 Dune movie, by the way,
yes,
40th anniversary. So I had just got the Vision Pro like an hour before I had to go to the movie.
yeah,
So I got it set up real quick. I did the setup. I went through some of the little demo stuff. And I'm like, all right, I gotta go. and
yeah,
then I haven't. I mean, I'm not gonna say I haven't messed with it since then. I watched like two episodes of The Sopranos last night, and the night before that, I watched some stuff. But I haven't gone back to the box to look for that strap. Like
yeah,
I've been using it laying down in bed, so I haven't really felt the need for the second strap. But
yeah,
I think I'm going tomorrow. I'm getting on a plane tomorrow to go to Europe for a week. So I'm going to Barcelona because Mobile World Congress is
yes,
starts on the 26th. But I'm leaving a few days early and taking mi esposa with me, and we're gonna take the high speed train and go to Paris for 3 days.
oui.
So I will be upright using this on. I've got a 9 hour flight from Houston
Yeah,
to Heathrow in London, and then we have like an hour and a half layover, and then a 2 hour flight to Barcelona, and
right,
then a 6.5 hour high speed train from Barcelona to Paris. So I will be using this upright for the next day and a half. So I will definitely, once we finish our podcast today, go get
yes,
that additional strap and put it on there because I'm curious to see how that helps with the weight distribution.
yeah, yeah. I actually like I found that the solo band for me was has been pretty much perfect. Like I've not felt strain. I haven't. I guess I did watch most of Mad Max Fury Road. That's a 2 hour plus movie, and didn't really feel any kind of like strain or anything. So I found that the solo band worked well for me, but it just because it just sort of like grabs me like like in the same spot that like a yarmulke would sit, right? And it just sort of
Mhm.
cups the back of my head, like the crown of my head, in such a way that it's on there pretty good, and I don't have to over tighten it to get the lenses to line up and stuff. So I haven't used the over the head band yet,
And there's
but
also the duo strap as well, where it
yeah,
has, I guess, the two different points, which I think Marquez MKBHD was talking about that, where he said he preferred the two strap
yeah,
one instead of the solo band, which I think it's fine. I think it's fairly comfortable. The only like what doesn't bother me so much is the weight, as the pressure points where it's like you feel it on the back of your head where it tightens, where the
right.
band's at, and then you feel it right here, like underneath your
Yeah,
eyes,
because you
where
really have to kind of rest it like right on this sort of orbital cheekbone,
mhm,
and that's where they want you to have it. And I
yeah.
found that if I get that right, just the right tension and just the right spot, it works fine. But every once in a while, I'll put it on, and then like it'll hit like some nerves or something, and my cheeks will go numb. and and I'll just be like, it's like when your foot goes to sleep or something, and then I'll just have to like readjust, and
Sit
it'll
there and
be
like
fine.
wake your cheekbones back up.
Yeah. So it's like it's not a huge discomfort in any way, um, which
Yeah,
I kind of thought, oh, maybe it'll be really uncomfortable, but I found it to be not nearly as uncomfortable as I anticipated.
yeah, it's better than I thought that would be, and the construction is top notch. Like I think they did a good job with it. I can't wait till we have one that's like 200 more grams lighter, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we need it to where it's so seamless and it's so comfortable that like it just doesn't really cause any issues. But unfortunately, due to the human body and there not being anything really to mount things on your head, right? I mean,
Yeah.
glasses work because they sit on your ears,
Yeah.
but when you have a visor like this, it's all pressure and tightening points.
Well, and the interesting thing is like I've always felt like the final form of Vision Pro can't be goggles that you strap to your head, right?
Contact lenses, 20 years
Well,
contact lenses.
they already make contact lenses that will do AR things. So I don't know how realistic that technology would be in the near future, but I remember when we were at CES in 2020, and there were companies there that were advertising that they had these AR contact lenses.
Mhm.
So who knows where that technology is? But the thing that so I think of it in the same way as I think of like heads up displays in a car. I
Mhm.
think I think pretty soon we're going to see more and more heads up display in a car where like the 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 AR portion of your dashboard is more important than like the dials and buttons and stuff like that. And I feel like Vision Pro kind of has to have some of that to it as well. Like it can't be totally closed off, but it has to in some way like be able to project the the display that you're seeing in the spatial computing world, um, without being totally closed off. Because and not everybody wears glasses, and not everybody's gonna want to put on contacts. So I don't. The this is the crucible. This is the most important thing that they have to figure out is how to get out of goggles and into something that will give you the same experience but not tether you to like something strapped to your face, right?
Yes.
And I don't know how you do that, honestly. So so I found that I really did enjoy it a lot more, and could see the practical use for it a lot more than I anticipated when I got it. And so
You know what's
I got a video coming out there where I'm, I'm going to eat a little bit of crow and say that, it's further along than I thought it would be when I initially heard like what features it was going to have when at release.
it is? You know what's really unnerving though? Like I don't. I'm sure a lot of people haven't experienced this because most people probably don't use it laying down in bed. But falling asleep with it on and waking up with it still on your face is a trip because it's really disorienting to
Yeah.
have this virtual environment as soon as you open your eyes. Like it's really weird.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that like did you have like the wow experience of like when you got put into a three-dimensional video and like there was stuff like all around you could turn all the way around?
So
Like that was my first wow moment where I was like, "Oh,
I
I'm
really like the 3D environments. I got to tell you, like I've used virtual reality stuff extensively before. Like I had the Oculus Rift, I had the Samsung HMD like
yeah,
Odyssey mixed reality headset. I have the Quest. We didn't get the first Quest. We had the Quest 2 and the Quest 3 we have. And by like far and away this thing completely blows all that out of the water as far as the
yeah,
user experience
yeah,
and the immersiveness of it. Like it's I think it helps add to the immersiveness because when you're not in those environments, you can see very clearly like what's going on around you.
right.
And then it's like poof, you're in this whole nother world.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the thing even when you're in the environment where you're using the spatial computing interface, right? They pop up the icons and your eyes are like highlighting the icons and that kind of thing, and then you're pinching. Um, that to me is an entirely different thing than any other VR/AR experience that I've had. I mean, I've put on plenty of VR headsets. I still have my Oculus Rift S. I've used like all of the TCL, the next like the Rokid. I've used all kinds of things over the course of the years, and nothing has had that sort of three-dimensional like interactive thing that floats in space that you can move around kind of thing, you know?
And and one thing that does piss me off though, you have these two sensors right here
Yeah.
around the sides of your nose. If you touch or reach your hand anywhere around that, it gives you a sensor warning and like pulls you out of whatever you're doing.
I
And
haven't.
it's like
Yeah.
so like if you reach up and you get an itch right here like on the side of your nose or something
Right.
and you put your hand up there, it's like tells you not to, block the sensors or whatever and then it
Interesting.
like pulls you out of what you're doing.
I
Yeah,
have.
so I don't talk about this a lot because it's a sensitive subject for me, but um having Tourette's and using a headset and having all these sensors, especially with some of my muscle tics that I have, it does. It's kind of frustrating. So that's one of the reasons why it's hard for me to use these headsets. Is one, I have like herniated discs in my neck from like getting dropped on my head inside of a Humvee. But whenever you have a continual like head twitch and you have extra weight on your head,
Yeah.
that's what gives me headaches, and it
Yeah.
gives like I can get bad headaches from this stuff, and that's one of the reasons why historically I had bought the Quest, I reviewed the Quest, but I'm like I can't use it long term, which is one of the reasons why it's important to me to be able to lay down when I use something like this, because then it's not my head supporting it with
Right.
extra weight
Yeah.
that's causing these physical issues. So yeah, that and that's one of the biggest hurdles that I've had to overcome. So maybe I'll make a video about something like that for people with like head and neck issues using a Vision Pro. Maybe that will be helpful for some people.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it's the best so far. Like out of all the ones I've used, I expected there to be more disappointment with this. And I haven't really talked about it too much because I haven't had the experience. But
Right.
leading up to me using it, I thought, okay, I'll run into a point where there's something that sucks. And other than the nighttime stuff, I really haven't. Like every
Yeah.
time I put it on and the home menu buttons pop up, I get like a smile on my face because it's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. I think the only thing that has been frustrating for me is when you're, at least for me, when I'm watching a YouTube video in Safari. right? Your eyes can track to the play bar, right?
Hmm.
The timeline. But then if I want to go full screen out of the Safari window and just go full screen with a YouTube video, like I can never just quite get that full screen icon. I always end up like
Yeah.
pinching it and it takes the video to the end. Like I can see that it's selected and I'm like, oh, and it's just so there's still a few kinks to work out. And of course there will be a
I
YouTube app,
wish
there will be, all this stuff, but
I
that's
wish
been the
they
most
had a
frustrating thing for me.
I wish they had a button. You like we have on like on your Chrome browser, like you have on Safari, where you can just hit the little green button and it maximizes it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish we had that because you have to resize the window. You look down at that little taskbar line, and
Yeah.
then you have to look over to the right, and then it moves it to the edge, and then you can grab it.
Yeah.
And I kind of get tired of that. I wish, and it's not the most seamless process always.
Well, and the thing is like so we're used to in computing like okay, so Windows has their close the window button on one side and Mac has it on the other side, but they're at the top, right?
Yeah,
And Vision Pro has its close app like move things around stuff on the bottom. So
yep.
you can grab the bottom and you can move it around, but it's still like kind of counterintuitive to me to do that. I did find perhaps like the best place to use the Vision Pro.
The
Um,
toilet.
yes, the toilet, like the toilet is the best place to use Vision Pro because like okay, let's be honest, everybody goes into the bathroom with their phone or with their tablet or whatever, right? We
No
used to
need to
read
get your hands
books.
dirty.
We used to read books. We don't read books or magazines at the toilet anymore. We take our phones. It's nasty, it's disgusting, but that's just what we do. Let's all admit it. And so I went into the bathroom and, I knew I was going to be in there for 15, 20 minutes. So I had the Vision Pro on. I put the battery pack up on the sink and I just sat there and like, I,
And next thing you knew,
no,
you finished Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
no, like putting my hands on a piece of technology in order to interact with the technology. It was like it's the killer app for Vision Pro right now is being able to like have hands-free toilet time.
I wonder if we're going to see a rise in like new cases of deep vein thrombosis from sitting on like people getting blood clots in their legs from sitting on the toilet too long.
Yeah. Oh man. I don't know, but yeah, that it occurred to me. It occurred to me like as I was on the way to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, I can keep this thing on. It'll be
So you were
great.
serious? I was
Yeah.
just making a joke about the
No, I'm
toilet being the best
serious.
place.
I'm absolutely serious.
I was just being socially, inappropriate and thinking, yeah,
No, I'm
yeah, the toilet no, apparently is for real. I haven't tried this yet. My wife would probably be disturbed if she walked in there and I was sitting on the toilet with this giant headset on my face. I got to tell you though, we're gonna have a moment of candor here with the audience, so you have to forgive me.
as if we
So
weren't already just now.
yes, so as we were talking about, since the dawn of time, we've been taking portable electronics into the bathroom with us.
Yes.
I mean, I can remember when I was like 9, like you take the Game Boy in there,
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
Zelda sitting on the toilet. Well, I bought a PlayStation Vita when they first came out. And I bought Mortal Kombat, and I was playing Mortal Kombat on there. And I took it into the bathroom with me, and I was playing online fighting. I was doing some online matches while I was sitting on the throne. And all of a sudden, I hear somebody talking to me through my Vita, and apparently by default, it had voice communications on. And this person could hear noises and starts talking to me. I'm like, hello? They're like, yeah. I was like, I can hear you. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can hear you. Shut off the PlayStation Vita. It was
See
the
that?
most. It was terrible. I was like, oh my gosh. I'm glad you don't know who I am in real life.
So this makes me think of one of my most like I was most shocked and B most disgusted and C most annoyed at this human behavior. Going into a public restroom where there is someone in one of the stalls
Hmm.
having a loud phone conversation while doing whatever it is that they're doing.
I think we shared this. I think I talked to you about this before a while back. Maybe it was even a previous podcast discussion. But
Yeah,
I went I went to the Cracker Barrel a few months ago, and I
oh
took my
man.
son. We It was the day the iPhone 15 Pro came out, and I let my son play hooky from school.
Huh?
And my wife found out about this later because I included him in my vlog video.
Oh
So
yes.
we had a moment of atonement there. But we had gone to Cracker Barrel, and I told my son, I'm like, "Hey, let me use the restroom real quick." And I walk into the restroom, and this dude walks in behind me. He's talking on the phone. He goes into the stall, and I'm thinking, okay, he's gonna like say goodbye or
Yeah.
something, right? No, he's just carrying away, and dude is just letting it rip. Like it's like back blasting the inside of the toilet, loud, like loud, and he's just talking away on the
uh,
phone. And I'm like, how is this?
I,
Why would you do this?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Like, okay, I do weird things. Like when I had the Vision Pro on my head when I was in the toilet, I sent my wife a text, you know, saying I'm on the toilet with the Vision Pro, and she's like, "No, you're not." I'm like, "Yes, I am," but but having a full on conversation while on the toilet, like I don't talk on the phone on the toilet ever. Privacy in my own home, nowhere ever. Because who wants to do that? Like, you
I
know
don't
what?
know. I don't even want to do that when I'm around another person. Like I know some people like jokingly will like fart around their wife or something like that. But I'm a
Yeah,
very private person in that regard, and I find that like not very well mannered, so I don't do that. But yeah, it's like who are you, who would not be like hang up on the phone as soon as they hear you like blowing it up like you remember Dumb and Dumber whenever Lloyd goes in, not
yeah,
Lloyd, what's his name? The other one, Jeff Daniels' character. Anyway, you remember
yeah,
he goes into Miss Christmas's home and
yeah,
he goes to use the bathroom and it's out of order.
yeah.
Like, dude sounded like that. If he's talking on the phone with somebody.
See, and I would think in a public restroom, even if you weren't like making audible noises from your nether region, right?
Mhm.
It's so reverberant in there that whoever you're talking to would have to know you're in the bathroom. Like you didn't just
Yeah.
walk into an echo chamber, you didn't just walk into like a museum or like the city hall or something. You're obviously in a bathroom,
Yeah.
and the reverb is being picked up by the microphone on your phone.
And
As
microphones on phones are pretty good nowadays. We're not talking like a Nokia brick. We're talking like these phones have spatial audio. They've got multiple microphones,
and
stereo.
they're pretty good at noise cancellation and like compression and stuff, but I just don't think if you're in an environment that is very live in terms of like how the sound is bouncing around, it's going to come through on the phone. And so I just don't understand. I don't understand that part of human behavior. Like I
I don't know. The only other one I don't get, it's also revolves around using phones in the bathroom. Women don't have to deal with this because they don't have urinals. But us men who have to use urinals,
yeah.
you'll be using the restroom. You see somebody walk in and like they stay on their phone while they're taking a leak. Like, really, what's so important you can't put your phone down for 18 seconds?
Yeah. I don't know. And phones are like I was just thinking about this with the Galaxy S24 Ultra because this has always been an issue with me with Samsung phones. Naked, Samsung phones are always so freaking slippery, right?
They are, yes.
And it's better now that they have like the matte backs, but they are still more slippery than an iPhone for some reason. Like, and so I just always imagine like the jeopardy that you're putting your phone in by standing in front of the urinal, like like
Whoop.
I don't even understand. I don't like to talk on the phone. Like when I talk on the phone, it's a very utilitarian thing. Like I need to say this to you now, and now I'm going to say it, and now I'm done. I'll have text conversations with people that
Right.
go on for 10 times longer than a phone
If I make a
conversation.
phone conversation, it's very generally I need to talk to you about something that is just going to take too long or can't be communicated well over
Right.
text.
Yeah.
So I get that, but I mean, I know phones are IP68, but I would just never look at my phone the same way again, no matter how clean I got it, if it fell into a urinal or a
Well,
toilet.
I remember when COVID first came around, and there was a lot of discussion about how dirty your phone actually gets.
Oh, they get
Uh,
really dirty.
yeah, because I mean, you are like, it is something that you carry in your hands, and your hands are touching everything that you touch. And I don't care like what kind of antibacterial soap you use. Like, there's always going to be gross stuff on your hands, and then you're putting it in front of your face, and it, like,
Well,
so,
the other thing too is the materials that most phone cases are made out of are not antimicrobial. They're porous. They're like a sponge for
yeah,
bacteria and germs and dirt and like anything stuff you can't see will get stuck on or in it.
yeah, yeah. It's so phones are disgusting, and I just don't know why you would want to risk making your phone even more disgusting by 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 going into the bathroom and doing number one or number two
Or
with
flagging
it.
yourself as a social deviant while doing those things.
Yeah, I just it doesn't make any sense, and it's one of those human behaviors where usually like you could chalk something up to like, oh, it's a cultural difference, or oh, certain people do certain things, and but I can't think of any reason anyone from any culture or walk of life would want to talk on the phone while taking a poop. I just it like it
Boggles the
boggles.
mind.
Yeah, it does. It boggles my mind, and there aren't many things in this world that boggle my mind. Like I can't come up with one decent explanation.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
like
somebody.
after 40 years of walking this earth, there's not a lot that surprises me anymore.
No.
But that is a truly perplexing moment
Yeah,
when
and
you
I
see
mean,
that.
and it's not like, hey, I'm in the bathroom, but I gotta call you and tell you this thing. What? It's not that. It's like full voiced conversations while on the toilet in the public restroom. I just don't. I don't know. I don't know. It
I mean,
can't,
unless that voice doctor like telehealth visits have gotten so complex now that you can talk to your gastroenterologist and be like, "Here's what I did." I mean,
yes.
maybe that would be the only only
So,
appropriate
can you imagine
situation.
like FaceTime call with your gastroenterologist? Like, okay, that's what it looks like
Does
right
this look
now.
normal? Does this look normal?
Oh, jeez. Yeah, now you can do the telehealth where you can take your take your poop doctor, your proctologist into the bathroom with you. Oh man,
Oh my goodness.
I just yeah, but I guess now would be a good
We're gonna
time
get
to
a lot of
pivot. Yeah,
we're gonna get a lot of comments
if
in this video.
anybody in the comments can tell us why, one good, logical, sound reason why you would want to have a full voiced conversation with another person while taking a poop, let
In a
us know
public
in the
bathroom.
comments down below. Right? Because it's, I'm 52 years old. I cannot figure it
And
out.
if you don't want to self-identify as a public pooper on the phone, you can like I don't know, log in incognito mode or create a new Gmail
Yeah,
account.
you don't have to like you don't have to claim the behavior yourself.
Yeah,
You
someone
know,
I knew.
yeah, you can. I've got a friend. I've got a friend who. Yeah. So
All right, so that
maybe this.
segue.
So now we pivot toward the. I guess Vision Pro is more. It's more of a big deal to people because it's so expensive. But
Mhm.
now a lot of content creators and other folks are getting backlash for returning their Vision Pro.
And that's
And
kind of frustrating because I told you about this before the show. I made a community post on my channel saying, "Hey, I finally got one," and I kid you not, two or three comments
yeah,
were like, "Oh, you're just going to return it just like every other person." Like, I'm like, "No, I'm not," and I find it rude that you would insinuate that because most people, like people that can comment, I believe they have to be. I think they have to be subscribers. I don't know because they won't see your
yeah, I'm not
community
sure.
posts otherwise.
Yeah,
But either way, I'm like, you've probably been around my channel for a while. Like, I buy this stuff and I don't return it. So why would you say that? But there's been enough of this going on. And as the gentleman in your comment section said, there's been a record breaking number of Vision Pros that have been returned. Like, well, what was the previous record that was
yeah.
broken?
That's yeah. Somebody said in a comment. like record-breaking numbers of returns on the Vision Pro, and because this is the first iteration of the device, like is it breaking like a long-standing record of returns of just general? I don't think so.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm sure that it's not. I think by and large, most people probably are keeping them, but it's always we're in an echo chamber here on YouTube. Like we have, it's kind of a familiar community because folks that watch me and watch you, they watch MKBHD, they watch like other people who make tech videos. So I think it's kind of like hyper accentuated because this community of people that make videos about them, and then you see some of them returning them, and then it just creates this illusion
yeah,
that all people are buying them to return them. Just like every video we make is because we were paid by a company to make it, you know?
right, right. And I guess I haven't watched Renee Ritchie's video yet, but I don't typically follow Colin and Samir, but I guess they made some sort of comment about how Apple was paying reviewers to say nice things about the Vision Pro or something like that. And to me, that's once you've lived in the tech space for long enough that you kind of know the companies and what their policies are and how they act toward creators and journalists and people like that. Um, the idea that Apple would pay anyone is
It's like
is
you have to basically sacrifice your first three born children to get one in the first place. Like they're certainly not paying you.
it's only been a few years now that Apple has given out review units whatsoever, period,
Period.
ever. You know, they would give like iPhones to Walt Mossberg and like David Pogue and some other journalist at like some other well-known publication, but otherwise like MKBHD, iJustine, anybody
We got them
else,
on launch day.
we have to go to the store and get the iPhone, right? And that was
Mhm.
one of the great sort of like
It was the great
democratizers,
equalizer.
yeah, of YouTube, is that like if I'm trying to get a channel going and I want to cover the iPhone, then I know that if I get to the store early, I get back, I make a quick video, and I have it out by 11 o'clock in the morning.
You
Then
get it out before the big guys.
but now it's the kind of thing where they get it 2 weeks in advance, and so it's not the same thing anymore. But Apple has always been very stingy. Apple knows that their products are going to draw a lot of attention, and so they I mean, I could see them maybe paying a content creator to make like demonstration videos,
Mm.
but they're not going to pay a content creator just to make like videos, like to make
No,
a
and they
review
would do that
video.
anyway because when it comes to reviews, the whole point of having a review is that it's supposed to be unbiased. Like
Right,
it's supposed to be okay, you got it. You make inform your objective opinions about something, and then you report. Otherwise, you can't trust the system, right?
right,
If there's all these paid videos, but also YouTube has a catch for this, where if you are paid according to FTC guidelines, you are
yeah,
legally required to check the box that says this was a paid video. You were paid to make this video, and then it pops up in the top of your video when people watch it and say this is a paid, paid video,
right,
and
right,
that's kind of like the catch-all. I mean, I guess you could be dishonest and not do that, but eventually it'll catch up with you, like some way, some shape or form. Like you'll get found out, and then you'll be in violation, and then you won't have a YouTube channel anymore. But you're supposed to disclose that it has been like you've been paid.
when money exchanges hands, yes.
Mhm.
And
And we make some of those videos. Like you make some sponsored videos, I make some, but that's not a review. It's like a product showcase video, and I will
right,
never call those videos a review because one, it very clearly states they got paid, and I will say this video was sponsored by so and
right,
it'll be like something I typically wouldn't review in the first place, or something that like an e-bike. Like I don't normally make e-bikes, but if somebody's like, "Here, we would like you to make this, we'll pay you." Okay,
right.
yeah, sometimes like you need to make money so you can buy more phones to review. So,
Well, and the thing is, like, even if the idea that money changing hands has to negate your potential for being unbiased is a very immature way to think about that, right? I mean, it's very absolute, I guess, and that's a good thing. But to me, like, I say to companies that I will not allow them to have any sort of editorial oversight.
Mhm.
You know, they can't come back to me and say, we don't like that you said this. If they do, and they don't want me to publish the video, then I won't. I don't know why my video is all messed up right now, but it is. Um, so that, to me, I think it's entirely possible to be an unbiased reviewer of a piece of whatever and get paid for it, because journalists get paid, right?
Yeah.
And journalists have traditionally been the people who made videos and or made the first foray into introducing products to people.
Hmm.
So there was never any sort of like, oh well, that journalist is biased because he gets paid to be a journalist, right?
Well, I think the relationship is a little bit different in the product review space because a lot of people assume that, oh, our videos are not biased anyway because we were given something for free, like ergo we
Right.
owe them something. Like, no, that's not how this works. They want the exposure,
Right.
but that's one of the reasons why you and I do not get a lot of these review units, because we have a penchant for saying things that, well, are quite frankly very honest.
Right.
And
Yeah.
whenever you say things that, well, you might be like, well, I don't like this. This sucks. They could do this better. I don't know what they were thinking here.
Right.
That doesn't usually bode well with those kind of relationships. So then it's like, okay, we're not sending you anything.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I mean, there are companies who used to send me stuff that stopped sending me stuff because of things that I said. So it is a reality. Now, you would think that a company out there could withstand withstand the slings and arrows of a YouTuber who has a few negative things to say about their product.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, there are some thin skins out there, I guess. But when it comes to returning a product, um, the one thing that I would say at a like 10,000 foot level, you have a lot of people who have just a vested interest because they want to try out the product, and they make these reviews or whatever. And so you're getting sort of the opportunity to have the unvarnished opinions of a lot of different people that you wouldn't necessarily come into contact with, right?
Mhm.
And some people are going to return it because they don't like it. Nothing
Well,
wrong
I
with that.
think my thought process of the matter is, what was the intent that you bought it for? Like, if
Right.
you bought it knowing when you bought it that you're going to return it, I find that unethical. But if you buy something because you genuinely are interested in it and you want to try it out, and then you find out, okay, it's just not what I thought it was going to be, and you take it back, that's the normal buying process. That's what somebody else would do. We just buy proxy. We happen to make videos
Right.
for like a living. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I bought something before and I was like, all right, I think this is going to be cool. I buy it, I make a video about it, and like in the video, I'm like, I didn't really like it all that much. I don't
Yeah.
have a problem with taking a product back like that, but it's very seldom that happens. Most, like 95% of the stuff that I buy, like it's sitting around my house somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm terrible about it.
The thing with the Vision Pro is that, I mean, the stakes are a little bit higher just naturally, right?
Of
Because
course.
we're talking minimum before taxes $3,500.
Yeah, and
Now
that's a
that's
lot.
that's not a small investment for anybody. I don't care like who you are. That's a lot of money. So my barrier for whether or not I would want to keep the Vision Pro is going to be a lot more, like it's going to be a thinner line. Good, like keep or take back, than it might be if it's a product that maybe has some flaws, but it didn't cost me a month's pay. So
No, it's also a first generation thing. I mean, there's a lot of reasons somebody could take it back. I've heard some people say it gives them headaches. I've heard some people say it causes them to have nausea. I've heard some people say that I don't know. There's like a lot of like just I couldn't use this because it caused me so many issues. It gave me eye strain.
Right.
I mean, those are legitimate reasons not to keep a $3,500 product. So if you make a video, it says, hey, like you bought it because you were super excited. And then a week later, you take it back, you make a video and like, look, I'm sorry. I wanted to keep it. There was a lot of things I really liked about it, but it was giving me horrible headaches and eye strain. That's something that you communicate to your audience when you say something like that. And then they're like, okay, you're giving them insight that could be invaluable into the purchasing process because what if they have eye sensitivities? What if they have like similar
Yeah.
issues to where they're like, okay, I should not go buy this because I may experience the same thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I was lucky enough to have a good experience with the lens inserts, but that's a total crapshoot as well. Like whenever you're working with something that has to like interface with your body in any way, then it's going to be there are a lot more variables that can take it that you have to take into account.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the end of the day, like I feel like I'm very impressed with Vision Pro, and I definitely want to own the Vision Pro. However, like given my current state, like there's not something that I need the Vision Pro for, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can totally see myself buying Vision Pro again or buying the next version because there's a ton of potential in it. So the people who are out there returning it, I mean, I sort of go back and forth because on one hand, like Apple's the richest company in the world. Like, they are the highest valued company in the world. So,
I think in history.
yeah. And so I'm not going to like cry river for Apple that like some people are taking advantage of their return policy. You
They're
know what
going
I
to
mean?
refurbish it and they're going to sell it anyway. Like I don't necessarily like the argument of because of their position it's okay, but when a company makes a product, there is an expectation they probably have an estimated like 18% of these are going to get returned. And
Right.
that's fine. Like you can't expect that every person that buys your product is going to be 100% happy with it and keep it, whether it's $1 or whether it's $3,000.
Right.
So I look at it more of as like a genuineness and like, look, if you just didn't like it or if it's just not working out for you, I don't have like go take the sucker back. I wouldn't if I wouldn't expect myself to keep it, I wouldn't expect somebody else to keep it either.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's that whole thing about like the culture, the review culture around something like YouTube. This is something that we've never really, in the history of journalism, there's never really been this issue, right? Where average everyday people create their own media telling you what they think about a product. So this is a YouTube specific thing. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
guess people used to have blogs, but it's a totally different thing. And so I feel like it's a challenge with YouTube that is never necessarily going to go away. But
Well, I think the problem is not we know like there are people out there who intentionally buy every single product that they want to review and they will take it back. Like there are people
yeah,
that buy stuff with the intent of returning it. And they'll
yes,
do it over and over and over. And I mean, there's a system in place. Like I know somebody before who returned so many things at Best Buy that they got shut off. Like they couldn't return anything anymore.
it happened to me.
Yeah. So I know that there are systems in place to try and alleviate some of this, but I think generally most people that return things, I don't have a problem with it. It's just like if somebody's just continually buying just to make a video, just to return it, I find that unethical. But if you're like one every 10 things or whatever, like if you just want to return something, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, yeah. I think with Best Buy, like I did get shut down at one point, and it actually wasn't me trying to like game the system. I just happened to get like I think I went through like 3 or 4 laptops where there were actually issues with like the first 3.
Hmm.
And so I returned the first three to get another one, that didn't have the issue. Because to me, like, okay, I buy a laptop and yes, I could get it fixed. I could send it in to be repaired or what,
But
whatever.
why should you have to do that?
Yeah, if I'm still within my return window and the product is not working correctly, then I'm returning it. But I think because of the dollar amount and the frequency of the number of times that um, I ended up returning those laptops, I think that it triggered. They have loss prevention contractors that sort of watch these things, and I think it triggered something, and so I wasn't allowed to return anything for like 12 months or 18 months or something like that, which if I wanted to return something, I would just buy it on my wife's account. So,
Yeah,
so
I mean it's one of those things where, and I can understand that. I've bought a laptop before and I've taken it back and I got another one because when you look at it and you look on paper and it's like, all right, this looks like a good deal. I'll try this out, and then you get it and you're like, I'm just not that crazy about it. And if you're going to spend like, let's say, $1,500, $2,000 on a laptop, like you want to get the one that's best for you. Like
right,
I can't just go buy 5 laptops and take it all home and be like, oh, wait, maybe this one, maybe this one. You look, you try and do some research, you find a product you think is good for you, you watch a YouTube video or two, and then you buy it. And then it's like, this happened to me when I was in law school, and I bought a Dell laptop,
yeah,
and it was one of those ones that was like the 1338 by 768 resolution monitor, and I hated it. Like it was a
yeah,
good deal, and I thought I could live with it, and then I was like, no, I took it back, and I ended up getting one that had a full 1080p resolution,
right,
just because that 13-inch monitor with that resolution just made everything janky. I didn't like it, but I mean that's a fair reason to take something back.
right.
So I think there's a couple different motivators going on, but I think it's just another one of those eye rolling things where you get viewers, you get people who are just like, oh, but they just bought it to make a video and then they took it back.
Yeah, I guess what bothers me ultimately is kind of the cynicism that comes through from the audience. Um, and maybe it's not nearly as prevalent as it seems because people who have a negative experience are more likely to leave comments, right?
Hmm.
So that's whether or not you are reading reviews on Amazon or watching review videos on YouTube, um, and so but the cynicism is frustrating because I don't think whether somebody like buys something and knows they have to return it because like, oh geez, I just like right now I can't afford this out of my paycheck or whatever, or they think they're going to be able to do it and then they realize they can't, or they're like, I don't think any of those people, regardless of what scenario they might be using to and then returning a product, are cynically buying the product to give it a good or a bad review or to just only to get clicks. It's like we make videos, so of course we want to get clicks. But
No, I don't want to get clicks on my videos. You
but I
want you
but
want
I
you want views? You want clicks?
I mean it's a good thing I don't because but I just don't think that the people who buy products to review them, regardless of whether or not they keep them, are doing so more often than not for some like nefarious, cynical reason.
Well, I think putting that fairly. I mean, I don't think a lot of people. I don't think that their review is necessarily skewed one way or the other because of buying it and with the intent of returning it. Like you bought it because ultimately you wanted to test it out.
Yeah,
So you want to test it out. You want to make a video for whatever reason. But I think that regardless of whether you buy it with the intent of returning it, or if you buy it and you keep it or happen to return it, I don't think that really has any bearing on what the actual video is.
right.
Because like there's some people that could buy it who absolutely love it. Maybe something catastrophic happens. Like I was going to buy the S24 Plus, and I told my audience, I'm like, look, I'm going to buy the Ultra, I'm going to buy the Plus, and then the day that they came out, I was going to go to Best Buy and go buy it, and my dog got attacked and almost killed by another dog, and I had to go
Right.
spend like $1,000 to go pay for the medical bills at the vet. Well, I ended up having to wait 2 extra weeks till I got paid again. Like I could have bought the phone, but then I could have like returned it and to pay for
Yeah.
my dog's vet bill. But I did the responsible thing and I just waited 2 extra weeks, which was fine. But Like life happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. I mean, I guess ultimately I'd love for like there to be less cynicism on both sides of the coin when it comes to this stuff. Um, and I don't know if it's. I mean, I only review stuff in the tech space, so I don't know if the cynicism exists in all review areas of YouTube. I'm sure it does on some level or another, but like it's just bizarre to me to have like a weird adversarial relationship with your audience, or at least a portion of your audience. Um,
There are some of those people for sure. And it's funny, like I'm pretty nice to like 99% of people that reply. I'm thankful. At the end of every one of my videos, I tell people, thank you for watching the video. I
yep.
appreciate it. But, and I try to be really nice to everyone. Someone's like, hey, I got this phone. I'm like, hey, I'm happy for you. I hope you like it. And then you get some people that just want to be jerks for no reason. And I'm like,
Yep.
okay, well, I don't mind being a jerk back sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. There, like sometimes I will respond. Um, sometimes more often than not these days, I just let it go, or I say thank you, or like something that's going to frustrate them, more so than actually responding, because most people who make those comments are hoping that you're going to respond, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know, but like Vision Pro is definitely an interesting case study for this phenomenon, because it's a it's a first generation product that is so crazy expensive that
It creates a
it's
polarizing environment because
yeah.
it's not like, okay, I went out and I bought this Nintendo game for $50 and I took it
Right.
back or whatever. It's like it's a basically $4,000.
Yep.
So the one that gets me though is a lot of people are like, oh, if you didn't get one or you don't like it, it's because you can't afford it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, dude, like it's ridiculous to me that there's this like elitist assumption where if you don't like it or you have no interest in it, it's like, oh, you're just too poor to afford one. I'm like, no, some people can make an assessment with their eyeballs and their
Yeah.
brain and go, look, this is not worth $4,000 to me. I think it's stupid. And I look, if you think it is stupid and you think it's not worth 4 grand, I believe you. That's totally fine to have an opinion like that because that's you,
Yeah.
and everybody has their own intrinsic value on what things cost. Like that's why there's a bunch of cars. Somebody could be like, I only buy used cars that cost $10,000, and
Yeah.
they'd be like, if you go buy a $60,000 Mercedes, then you're stupid. Like, well, no, I mean they're not. It's just people value things differently.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're a dyed in the wool used car buyer, and you have your reasons behind that, and it works for you, then you have your own philosophy about how that works for you, and you would look at other people who spend more money and say, well, it's just stupid to spend that much money. But that doesn't mean that those people aren't going to spend that money or shouldn't spend that money. And so I had somebody comment on one of my videos saying like, you just can't afford it. And it's like, well, I went and bought it. Like, it's in my house.
Yeah.
So, so I mean, it's like I didn't steal it. So I clearly could afford it, but it's always like especially with high ticket items, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, like you judge it more harshly than you would otherwise because of what it is. And so
And you would
I
hope that
think,
you would. I mean that's something a logical, sound person making a judgment on something. Is this worth it to me? And sometimes you can't figure out if something is worth it until you try it out.
right, right. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm anxious to see where Vision Pro goes from here. I'm anxious to hear what your thoughts are as you use it a little bit more, because it is interesting. Like you do have like physical challenges and stuff like that are not going to be typical, and so as you could consider Vision Pro still to be in a beta phase. It'll be
Mhm.
interesting to see how people who have different physical challenges are able to use and enjoy the product. I think it's going to be a huge boon for some people who have physical challenges that
Oh
make
yeah,
it
if you had
impossible for them to use like a traditional phone or computer.
if you were mobility challenged, or if you had paralysis issues or whatever, I was
Yeah.
just laying there in bed using. I'm like, you can do so much of this with just your eyes and just being able to tap your finger.
Yeah.
And like, it's basically, you don't have to hold something. You don't have to like move your finger around. Like, you can just look with your eyes,
Yeah.
and then I'm sure they'll come up with some way where you can like blink or you can do something. But I mean, just
Yeah. There'll
the
be some
implications.
accessibility thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
There may
I'm
already
sure they'll.
be, actually. I don't know.
There may be, but just the implications alone for this kind of technology and giving people back the ability to like and enjoy, communicate, interact with others, entertainment, information. Like,
Yeah.
I remember watching a special about this one guy who ended up who he got polio like in the 50s or the 60s. He's basically been in an iron lung for 50
Right. Yeah.
years, and he could only basically use his pencil in his mouth to like write notes.
Yeah.
And he went through law school. He graduated
Yeah.
law school. He wrote a book. I'm like, I could not like imagine having something like this as opposed to holding a pencil in your mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, my wife is the executive director of an organization that works with people who have all kinds of different challenges, and whether they be physical or otherwise. And there are devices out there kind of like this that people are using, but the benefit of having a company like Apple putting together these kinds of things is like Apple's accessibility features for their computers and everything else have always been like next level, and their design capabilities are probably well beyond what you know a company that
GoFundMe, like what do they call them? Not GoFundMe, but crowdfunding or
yeah.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, so they've got the means, they've got the design capabilities, they've got all the infrastructure that they built over the years to teach about user interface and everything else. So this is going to be a huge deal for people with all kinds of different challenges, and so I look forward to seeing like what that can do. I mean, and with Apple, you can know that they're going to tell us about it.
Oh, of course,
Uh,
yeah. They'll have all sorts of people in the video, just like, this watch saved my life.
yeah,
This phone saved my life. So I'm sure there will be stuff like that. But also, this is the end, like the beginning game. Like,
yeah,
I can only imagine where we'll be with this in 10 years, which is what excites me. But two, it will drive competition. So like Samsung was supposed to come out with their headset, I think, already. And after
right,
they saw the launch of the Vision Pro, they basically scrapped it and said, we're going to go back to the drawing board to make a better product. And I think we might see it towards the end of this year. But that's what I'm excited about too, is not
yeah.
just what is Apple doing, but what is Apple helping to create in the competitive space from other companies that will do the same.
Yeah, I read something the other day, and I can't remember exactly, so I'm just going to paraphrase sort of what the MetaQuest has been around in one form or the other for like 11 years, right?
Yeah.
And in 11 days, Apple had more native apps for the Vision Pro than the MetaQuest ecosystem has had
That's
available to
terrible.
them in
Like
like 11 years. So
the Quest is cool, but that was one thing I hated when I bought my original Oculus, is there was like 5 games. There
yeah,
was like hardly anything, and then I had it a year later and there was like 12 games.
yeah,
And I'm like, all right, so this is really cool, but I can't do jack diddly with it.
yeah,
So I it's very nice to see that. And of course, app developers will be flocking to this thing to because they will want to be one of the people in the next big space. So it's going to drive innovation. It's going to drive competition. It's going to drive more apps and more adoption.
yeah.
And I think that all is great. Like, I hate Apple, but I like some of the things that they do with their hardware.
Well, and the thing is, like, I had somebody argue with me that like developers weren't going to develop for this platform,
That's so stupid.
and
Like,
and
that's like saying it's like missing out on the next. Like, why would you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're not in this thing at the ground level?
and so their logic was, well, the install base is too small. I'm like, the install base might be small right now, but I mean, still, like it's app like it's Apple. It's not like Microsoft with Windows Phone, right? I mean,
No, or BlackBerry
Microsoft,
10 when they first came out.
yeah, Windows Phone suffered because they didn't have an install base, and it wasn't profitable for developers to learn an entirely like port it over to an entirely different operating system, all of their apps, right? Especially in the infancy of apps, like it wasn't nearly as easy as it is now. So Facebook and a few others did, but you could not get a lot of apps on Blackberries or Windows Phone because of the install base and the challenges. But with Vision Pro, I mean, so many of these companies wouldn't exist if they hadn't like developed apps for the iPhone or the iPad. so
Oh yeah,
so you'd have to
it's
think they'd be
coming.
like, okay, let me get in line for the next gravy train, and even if it doesn't happen, like you're still like, I don't know, I can't see a reason why. I know that Netflix's CEO was like, oh, why would we want to develop for that? But it's like there's clearly a reason why you would want to develop for that, right?
Oh yeah, obviously.
And so yeah, I just it's it's been a month of like super hot takes on both sides, and I've had my own hot takes, but I'll be anxious to see what Vision Pro becomes when all of the hot takes settle down and all of the initial bugs get worked out. Like personas is frightening still.
Thankfully, my
you know
persona doesn't look doesn't look terrible, but I'm not going to go sharing it with the internet.
Yeah, I've shared mine just because it's like an abstract painting. It's awful. it's,
Yeah,
it's
well, like I
ridiculous.
said before, um, they look to me like digital like obituary photos, like
Yeah,
for like a funeral ceremony. I'm like, I see these, and I just imagine there'd be like a rest in peace underneath. They're very off putting.
yeah,
I don't like them.
yeah.
Mine actually turned out okay, but again, won't be sharing that photo on Twitter.
I think so. What I've noticed in the ones that I've seen is so like males with like shorter hair and like a more defined like head area, I think do better because I remember Joanna Stern when she had done hers, like her hair was just like kind of laying on her chest area, right?
Mhm.
And so I just think like because my hair is like longer and I have this more bushy beard that it just was like I don't know what is this thing in front of me. So but when it all gets worked out and it starts to become a little bit more recognizable as what it's going to be, it's definitely going to be um, it's definitely going to be a paradigm shift. I think that it's suffice it to say that Apple's made 15 iPhones or
Mhm.
19 if you count like S years or whatever. But
Yeah.
they're coming up on having made 20 different models of iPhones year after year, right? So they obviously recognize that the iPhone window is like it's only going to be open for a finite amount of time,
I
and
mean, it'll be there for a long time to come, but it's like it's not the edge. It's just turning into a communication commodity.
right.
It's not as special as it once was. People are looking like, what's the next thing? And I mean, to get to the next thing, I think it requires a company like Apple because a lot of people are like, oh, it's just a headset. They don't understand what Apple has gone through over the last 10 years in developing their own silicon
Yeah.
and then making it so powerful and making it so small we can actually get it in this headset. That's what sets it apart. It's like having a MacBook powered headset with all these additional extra sensors and cameras and everything else. That's what's taken it to the next step.
Yeah.
And then over the next 5-10 years, that technology will get smaller and smaller. They'll get better and better at doing this thing, and that's going to lead to more portable, more powerful technology to do this stuff with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what people who haven't gone to the Apple Store and done the demo for Vision Pro or something like that, that's kind of what, if they've used VR technology in the past, the spatial aspect of what Vision Pro is doing is not in it's if I were to describe it to you, it doesn't sound super different, but when you experience it, you recognize right away how it's different from other VR
Well, and then like
experiences.
the power, the seamlessness, the immersiveness of the environment, the connection with the real space that you're still in,
Right.
the quality of the view that you have inside of there while you're doing like with the real world versus what you're doing virtually. I let my wife try it out for like 20 minutes and her mind was so blown. It's been 4 days and I think she's still trying to put pieces of her brain back together.
Yeah.
Like there's a significant level of wow that goes along with this.
Right.
And I don't think the entire experience should be defined by wow, but
No.
never have I had that wow moment with any other headset.
Right. Right. I mean, I've put on VR headsets and played games and been like, hey, this is pretty cool. But very quickly, like the challenges of doing it over the long period of time are pretty evident, right?
Mhm.
Um, when the killer app for one VR headset is Beat Saber, and and the killer app for Vision Pro is going to be something, I don't know what it is yet, but it's definitely going to be on another level. But like Beat
I, I
Saber is,
think I think when you look at it and you go, okay, when the iPhone first came around, like a lot of people really weren't initially that crazy about it because so many people like their Blackberries, they like their keyboards. They're like, all right, this is expensive. Is it going to work? All that stuff. And
yeah.
then it turned into the greatest thing since sliced
and
bread.
and the
So,
first iPhone wasn't like fully baked. You know,
no,
it had all of the, it had all the component parts that it was going to have, but it wasn't fully put together. And
no.
I really don't think that Apple started to make the iPhone be similar to what we know and love today until like
iPhone
iPhone
3 or 4.
4,
Yeah.
maybe. I mean,
I,
that's
I didn't
that.
take it seriously until the 3G.
Yeah.
Like when they first came out, there were a lot of limitations that I just really wasn't crazy about. I was like, this is not enough for me to move away from what I've got. And then I didn't get really excited about the iPhone until probably the iPhone 5. Like when the iPhone 5 came out, I was like, man, this is a nice stinking phone. Like
Yeah.
they really like kind of nailed the camera, battery life started getting better, like touch ID. There's a lot of neat things that they did. I'm like, this is good.
Yeah. And then you got the 5, then the 5S,
And then the
and also,
6.
and then the iPhone 6 is still to this day like the best selling smartphone ever on the planet. So, I mean, to go from product category almost doesn't exist to 5 or 6 years later, like,
Industry standard.
yeah, it Vision Pro could take a similar trajectory. We don't know, but it could, you know, because there were smartphones before the iPhone.
Well, remember when it first came out, it was exclusive to AT&T.
AT&T, yeah,
Like
yeah,
most people couldn't even get one for several years. And it wasn't until I think the 4 or the 5, I think the 4S is when they first moved to Verizon. Like it was
yeah,
several years
yeah,
before you could
I,
even get one on another network. And so it's not like the iPhone showed up and it existed and therefore nothing else existed from the
right,
beginning. It took 4 or 5 years for them really to be like, this is us. And it's kind of like
yeah,
solidified and created the industry that it was.
yeah. And so Vision Pro may very well have that same trajectory. Like we can't see it now. Like we couldn't have foreseen the iPhone 6 with the original iPhone in any way.
Oh no, I remember when my brother he got an iPhone before I did. I was still using a BlackBerry, and he bought the 2G iPhone when it first came out, and I think it had what 4 gigabytes of storage on it or something,
Right? Yeah.
and he paid like $600 or something. I'm like, you're crazy, dude. Like, how in the world you pay that much
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
for this phone?
Yeah.
And like, and it doesn't even have 3G.
Yeah. I know.
So I mean,
Yeah,
There's always criticism when these things come out. It's like the plasmas. When the plasma TVs first came out, I bought one very early on, and it cost me almost $3,000,
yeah,
and that was for a clearance model, floor model, 15% off coupon. I think I paid like 24.99, but it was originally over 3 grand, and it was 480p. Like it
yeah,
wasn't even
yeah,
720p, and it weighed like 100 pounds. It would put out tons of heat. Like it
yeah,
certainly wasn't perfect, but man, it was amazing.
yeah.
And
Compared
but most
to
people are like,
a CRT, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, so we've seen the move from CRT televisions.
mhm,
So the cathode ray tube is what CRT means.
bam,
So,
good job.
um, but we've seen moving from there to like plasma and flat screen TVs,
We went to
and then
liquid crystal display, and then we went
yeah,
to light emitting diode
yeah,
and
and
organic
then
light emitting diode. So
yeah,
I can play this
and
game too.
OLED was like another watershed moment, where it's like those, and 4K as well, like going from 720p to 1080p to 4K, like
Huge.
was a big deal too. And 4K TVs were super expensive, and now you can get a 55-inch 4K TV at Walmart for $300.
Yeah,
You
LED
know,
at that.
yeah, and so
So
yeah, the the whole ecosystem of how these things develop is, we've seen it ever since the industrial revolution. We've seen how products are introduced, and then they mature, and then they become the standard, and then they make way for the next thing that's standing on the shoulders of what came before it. So I'm excited to see what Vision Pro turns into. And I don't think that if there was any company that was going to sort of shepherd this thing into the mainstream, I think Apple has proven its pedigree in being able to do that.
well, it
Um,
helps when you're $1 trillion company to financially back your products to make sure that they actually do get adopted and received.
yeah, yeah, you've got some runway there.
Like, well, a lot of things about this, it's like when BlackBerry came out, like people knew that they weren't financially all that great. Like it
Yeah,
had to succeed, or they weren't going to succeed.
right.
The last couple of phones, so it's not like this new headset will not make or break Apple, and they have the money to stick at it to see it develop
Yeah,
and flourish. It's not like, well, it has to stay. It's not like Final Fantasy. You remember the story about Final Fantasy?
no, no,
So the reason it's called Final Fantasy is because when they were making it, they put all their money into it to like get it finished, and like if it didn't succeed, they were gonna close up shop. They were like, we're not gonna exist anymore.
yeah,
So they called it Final Fantasy because they thought it was gonna be their last game, and then it ended
yeah.
up being such a hit success, and they've all just keep calling them all Final Fantasy. But that's the gist of it. The
Now,
company was like gonna go to business.
now it's like you got like Final Fantasy 18,
Yeah,
and
Final Fantasy 8 million. Yeah, there's so many of them now, and I'm actually kind of pissed off at the moment because Final Fantasy 7 is my favorite, and I loved that game when it first came out on the PlayStation, and so they remade it, right?
right.
Well, when they remade it, they've broken it up into 3 parts, not
Uh,
one game, and I didn't realize that. So I bought Final Fantasy Remake last year. I played through it like 30 hours, and then I got to this point in the game, and it just abruptly ended. And I'm
oof,
like, what's going on here? I didn't realize it was part one of like 3 parts.
yeah,
And
it's
it's been
bad.
5 years since that one came out. So the new one is coming out like next week, but it's going to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive for the first year. My save game is on the PC. So I got to wait like a whole nother year so I can play the second part of this
Yeah,
game. But man, it's a good game.
yeah. And Final Fantasy is actually like a game that's a property that I never got into. There was a time when I wasn't playing games, like kind of the post Atari, early Nintendo, kind of like until PlayStation 1.
Hmm.
I wasn't really gaming all that much, and I didn't really get back into gaming until like PlayStation 2. Um, so I missed Final Fantasy almost entirely. And there's so many different kinds of Final Fantasy games too. So it's
Hmm.
like, Some are like some are open world games, some are you know
Well,
it's
that's
just
been one of the things with the Final Fantasy games is even though there's like I think they're on 18 now or 17 as far as the mainline ones,
yeah,
none of them are connected. It
right,
wasn't until I think this recently, maybe it was 16 or something like that, but it was like the first time ever they had a sequel. Like none
right,
of them have been sequels. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven are all like they're all distinct individual games on their own.
right, yeah. Well, I think it's time to wrap up.
Yeah, we're
It's
talking
time
about
to
Final Fantasy. Let's
yeah,
end the uh, podcast fantasy for today.
yeah, yeah. So, folks, thanks so much for being here. Next time we do the podcast, we won't talk about Vision Pro. Maybe just
I mean, we
a
might,
little
but
bit.
it won't be like a
Yeah,
major topic.
yeah, yeah. But we will talk about whatever's interesting to us at that point. So do tune in again. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, today, whenever it is that you're watching this. My video is all weird, and I don't know why, but it sounds like my audio is still fine, so that's really all that
Audio's
matters.
good.
Um,
Well, nobody's showing up for our faces. Let's be honest.
yeah, it's true. It's true. Um, But anyway, thanks so much for being here once again. Thanks, Adam, for doing the co-hosting job. And do check out his channel. Like and subscribe and bell notify yourself for this channel. Painfully Honest Tech Podcast here every week, dropping on the Saturday, and you can count on it like clockwork. So once again, my name is Jason, sometimes known as JTL. It's Painfully Honest Tech Podcast so honest and hurts. Until the next time, we are out.